So, hey guys, I'm your host Arish Sharma, and welcome to the Kayroz podcast, where we talk all about entrepreneurship, business mindsets, and work ethics from a college student's point of view. You can find us on YouTube, or even listen to us on Spotify and Google Podcasts, or subscribe to our weekly newsletter at kairos.in. With that said, in this episode, we are going to talk about the journey of one of the youngest CEOs in India and being a dropout and earning his first paycheck at the age of 11 and successfully exiting two companies at age 16 and 19. He now heads an NGO with a goal to empower Rajasthan and is the founder of the Indian Wire, a data publication company, as well as Backstage with Millionaires, a YouTube channel with over 150,000 subscribers, where he publishes all videos about startup news, startup culture, weekly Q&As. It is a great channel. You should really check that out. And this is the man himself, Prithvi Singh Chauhan. So, hey Prithvi, welcome to the show.
Hi Ayush, thank you for having me
Yeah. So, calling you an overachiever might just be an understatement from the things that I've heard from you and read from you.
here. Well, I don't know, that's your perspective, but I certainly don't want to go with that tag because I know there is still a lot to achieve, and I'm sure, looking at there are a lot of ideals that I have, and I haven't achieved even like 0.1% of what is there to be achieved. I mean, I don't want to compare with anyone, but I'm sure actually the world is too big. There is a lot to achieve. There is a lot to do. So, yep, I'm just trying to do what I can.
Yeah. Being ambitious is a very good thing, right? You have gained so much experience for the past years and you have faced so much challenges and grown as a person, as an entrepreneur, right? So, can you tell me about your journey? What were some major milestones in your journey, as well as what were some life changing moments or realizations that you had?
Talking about the first, you said the milestones. So actually, milestones, there are no major milestones in the past. All major milestones are in the future. I mean, that's something that I've realized. Obviously, when I was a kid in school, there were a few things like earning even my first paycheck seemed very big. But when you get there and when you look for the other thing to do and when you look for the other thing to do, all of these things, now that I obviously look back, all those milestones are nowhere in my journey, but certainly that experience counts. So, and apart from that, life changing, I mean, again, I don't really, I'm not someone who wants to go back and sort of, wants to keep on celebrating what I did in the past. I mean, I just want to look at the challenges which are lying ahead of me. But all the life changing moments are the times when you actually feel that you're happy. When you actually feel that whatever you're working on, whatever you have been working on is finally working on, is finally giving results. And when you actually feel happy, that when you sleep happily, because being an entrepreneur, being someone who is into startups and who is trying to build something, when you don't know, when you're not coming with that sort of experience, when like I wasn't really coming with that sort of even educational background. So there were a lot of people, and in India we are high on criticism, people around us. So I knew there was a lot of things, and a lot of people were looking at me just waiting for a chance to criticize. So obviously, when things started to work out, and when I was happy finally that okay, I have achieved something, I have started to do something. There have been a few moments, and those were my life changing moments. And apart from that, what was the third thing you asked? The realizations.
The
So
realization that you had, yeah.
yeah, I mean, there are a few realizations I had, and obviously, I think saying that right in the beginning of this podcast won't be wise. But one of the biggest realizations in life is be patient, and this works everywhere. Since last 3-4 years, more than what I have done in my business life, more than what I have done for my ventures and startups, I've also made conscious efforts to improve myself as a person, like improve my thought process, improve my how I am while talking to other people, what is the kind of behavior I'm showing to those people. And most of that, there is only one word which basically takes care of most of the life problems, and which is patience. So I think to begin with, that will be the word that I would want to give, and that is something that has worked for me as well, that being patient basically takes away most of your worries and solves like half of your problems.
Yeah, that's a great advice. Being patient really gives you it gives you another set of eyes, to look at the world from a different point of view. That in the long run things are going to work out. It tells you about the long run, not the immediate profit that you're going to have, right?
Correct.
India does criticize a lot, right? While right now it's
Um,
seeing,
Correct.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll let you go. Finish your question and then.
Yeah, right now seeing that the youth now is very ambitious. We want to prove ourselves that we are capable of great things, right? So in India especially, people are really unsure to hire young freelancers or trust them with their projects, right? While in the west side, right, it's a completely different story. They don't mind your age, they just value skills and they just want to get the job done, right? So being a young entrepreneur, what challenges you face and how did you overcome them? And you read about you that you started your freelance journey from the age of 9 itself, right? I want to know what challenges that you faced and how did you overcome them.
Okay, so the first thing you mentioned, and you mentioned it very rightly, that a lot of people in India do not really want to kind of believe or trust the people who are not on a certain age. Like if you're a kid and if you're just pitching to someone in India specifically, so a lot of people won't really give you that sort of importance, which is just because you are young, just because. And so I think that is something which is changing. Like when I started, I did start a few gigs, and it basically took me almost 2.5 years to earn my first paycheck. Like I was doing a lot of things for different people, and I knew. So another thing, like what we spoke about, patience is another thing which basically comes into play again, because when we are beginning, and when we are like, obviously being ambitious is one thing, uh, but being impatient is another thing, and that's a completely different thing which can certainly like impact you in a bad way. So most of the times when we as youngsters, when we are beginning, we have a lot of energy, and that energy doesn't really go in uh, building something. That energy doesn't really go in basically proving ourselves. We and this is something which might be a lot of people can again criticize, but we as a generation, and I again want to count myself and in the generation of the college going people in the teenage, because from my heart and mind, I'm still somewhere around the same 17 to 24, 21, 22 years of age. So we basically feel entitled. At times we feel that it is our right to get whatever is whatever we are expecting. A lot of things that are happening in the world, it's our right to just go back, go out there and just sort of snatch them. We don't realize that we basically have to work hard for everything, and that hard can be so harder for some of those things. So when we are beginning, when we are starting, we also don't have to forget that there are like the competition is so much that for every single thing, every single startup, every single product we are building, every single service we are providing, there are hundreds or thousands of people who are doing the exact same things and who are trying to do it better than you, who are trying to do it cheaper than you, who are trying to basically and most of them, and I'm not saying like some of them, most of them will be better than you. We don't realize that. So I think the biggest thing is to realize your worth, to basically realize what you are capable of, and realize some of and to actually have a strategy. Like we just don't want to go with, and that's something that I keep telling a lot of people when I'm talking about startups, like the kind of ambitions that we have, or the kind of basically the aims that we have, or the kind of people that we idealize, or get inspired from, we just look at where they are today. We don't look how they started or the kind of struggle that they had in their beginning, and we just think that all of this is very easy to go by. We don't really care about those kind of struggles, and when we actually face those struggles, we just lose patience and we think, okay, this wasn't expected to be this hard, right? And so I think that's one thing, like you and another thing, along with being patient, I think it's expected, or it's actually advised to be around with the people who have had experience in that. Like always have some mentors, always have some friends who are maybe elder to you, having more experience in professional life, in personal life, so that they can basically keep on guiding you on everything. So yeah, I think that's the thing. Whenever you are beginning, whenever you are expecting something out of other people, whenever you are thinking that I basically deserve this, just ask yourself, why do you deserve it? Like, what have you done? Have you proven yourself? Have you built something? Have you worked on, let's say you are providing some sort of services to some clients, and you're reaching out to a client and you are just pitching them, and when they reject you, you just feel, okay, you feel devastated, you feel that shouldn't have happened. So that moment, I think you need to ask yourself that what is in you that those people have to select yourself, those people have to work with you. And I think it's an endless journey to keep bettering yourself, to keep working on yourself, to make your skills better, and that that basically never ends. So I think that is one thing which a lot of people these days don't realize, a lot of people don't really take care of. They want to achieve everything on day one, and this is not how things work. Like, you have to give time to everything. We have a long life. Not everyone can be Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates, that they can just build the base of $1 billion company or $1 trillion company right when they were in college. A lot of people, thought process of a lot of people is different. The skill set of a lot of people is different, and you are you. Just don't look at the final product of someone else and just basically compare 20 years of journey of someone to first day of yourself. And that's it. I think all of us need to have different sort of strategies. It's great to have inspiration from people. It's great to basically idolize someone and want to be like someone, but you just have to realize that they did not reach there on day one. And once you realize that, I think you'll be in a better position to start. You'll be in a better position to prove yourself and basically to get some results.
Yeah, there's some really great advice. Like, from the day one, you have to start experimenting and seeing that what works best for you, because you
Correct.
are yourself an unique individual. You have your own skill set and you have your own passions. You have to make sure that if you can align them, then that would work the best for you.
Correct.
And at last, be unique, and just like you said, be unique. Find your own passion, find what's driving you, and why are you worth other people's time, right? What you have in yourself that other people might try to get your service and or anything, right?
Correct.
I also want to know your view on the US freelance or job culture. Like, let's say that in high school or in college, college students are really they go out and get jobs, or the high school students go out and get jobs. It teaches them how to become humble, right? It's a very great aspect of it, but it also gives them first as a hand experience and like how to deal with customers, right? And what are the basics of running a business. But India's infrastructure and the way that we run our businesses doesn't allow high school students or college students to go work in any kind of businesses, right? But except for the startups that are actively taking part in getting interns and youth into the culture, right? So I really want to know your view on that job culture that US has, and should India be implementing that?
Well, certainly, India should be implementing that, but again, it is not up to one person to implement the entire job culture, and it is also like the youth or the students or people who are just beginning. So basically, they also cannot do the same thing. Like, so what I really think, what is, and we cannot just keep on complaining about what is not happening, what the government is not doing. We also have to start asking, like, what are we doing on our individual level? And that's something that I have sort of wanted to do all my life. And so now, just giving the example of, let's say, you just said that freelancers, and in US they do have a platform, they do have opportunities that they can basically go out and they can apply for these jobs. Today, the world is so connected. I don't think there is anything which is stopping Indian people. There is anything which is stopping Indian students to basically apply for an internship or to apply for a freelancing gig for a client who is, let's say, in Australia or in the US or in the UK. So, and I basically have seen, this culture developing in the last few years, and there are a lot of these groups on Facebook that I'm a part of, and there are these people who come to India, who basically come to the Indian talent, who basically want to come to Indian freelancers because they know that Indian freelancers are talented, and also the kind of wages or the kind of money that those people have to pay is very, very less. So a lot of people basically do look forward to the Indian market. They look forward to the talented Indian individuals who can do those things for them, because for them it is like what they are paying is like 1/10 or maybe even 1/20th of what they would pay to an agency which is there in the US. So I think more than basically looking forward to looking at the situation, obviously the situation, and this is something I've kept on saying in a lot of my live interviews and a lot of other things, that these countries, you speak about China, you speak about the US, you speak about UK, you speak about a lot of these startup nations. those countries basically started to take these initiatives way back in 70s and 80s, and that's why we are basically looking at that culture now, that it took them 20-30 years. In India, we haven't really been speaking about all this culture. We actually didn't talk about all of these things until I think 2010s or early to, maybe 2008, when the whole startup scene basically started to burst with the kind of Go IB and Just Dial were some of the first few startups to come out of India. So before that, we weren't really talking, but a lot of things have changed. Like we would see a lot of things changing around. Like I've been around for a while, and I've been associated with a lot of college students, and I've basically have seen how the thought process has changed. How they have started to make the opportunities work for them, and so that's another thing. Like I want to connect it with what I answered in the first question, that all of us are unique. The kind of opportunities that we get are unique. So more than complaining, I think we should just get out and try to look for the responsibility, or basically try to look for the opportunities, whatever opportunity we get, because in the beginning we cannot really expect a lot of people to pay us the kind of money that we are expecting, right? We basically need to have the credentials to demand that kind of money. So just go out there, work for free, work for just certification, work for recommendations, get those 5-star reviews on your profile, get some really, really good reviews about yourself. Do your best, even, if you're working for free, or if you're working for 1/10 of your price or 1/5 of your price. And once you have some sort of portfolio, once you have some people recommending you, once you have worked for some people, and once you can basically have something to show to the other people, then is the right time to basically, go out there and start charging money for that. So I've seen a lot of people who are photographers, who are graphic designers, who are video editors, and there are a few interns who are working with us at Backstage with Millionaires, and most of them are college students right now. And they're working with us. They are certainly earning decent amount of money, and they are really, really talented. And most of, like, all of these people are first, second, or third year college students. So that's where I see there is a lot of talent. It's only about us realizing a talent and looking for an opportunity, and when the opportunity comes, basically trying our level best to grab that opportunity and make the best out of it.
Right. No, first deserving, then desiring, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So what you just said, like, first you have to get your portfolio up, get up and running, and do some work for free, even if you want to charge 1/10 of your price, get that work in your portfolio to showcase to the other people. Once you have got the skills, then you can go out there and charge your actual money, right? That's
Correct.
great. So in India, Indians really focus on the vocation knowledge, and and dropping out is seen as a taboo, right? That you can't drop out of school. You have to finish your studying, and you yourself have mentioned that you are an official high school dropout, right? So how did you know that the traditional ways are not for you, right? That schooling isn't going to work out for you. Like, where did that conviction come from? A lot of people think that schooling isn't for them, right? But they tend not to drop out because of the parental pressure or whatsoever, right?
So, I mean, I was kind of, I have been raised in an environment where my family was very strict. Like, my dad was in army, and I come from a very traditional Orthodox family, and all of these things were like any middle class family that could expect out of me, to just go out there, study science in my 11th and 12th, do engineering or something like that, do an MBA, and just go for a job, and they would be very happy. But when I basically started to work for people, and till then, I was working with a lot of people, I was working for a lot of people, I was doing a few really good projects, and I was earning a decent amount of money, which I knew was more than decent for basically me to survive. And once, like, I sort of started to figure out that if I can work for 8 hours in a day, and if I can earn this much, how about if I start working for 12 to 15 hours? And that was the time when I realized that what I was studying wasn't really adding value to what I was doing. Because I was a science student, and whatever I was studying in, let's say chemistry or physics, physics anyway I still kind of liked it. Maths I anyway kind of liked it, but chemistry was something that I could never like in my 11th and 12th, and this was something I realized. So talking about the conviction, I think it's and that's another thing I kind of want to deviate away from the question, and kind of want to build a little bit of background before coming back to it. So coming back to conviction, and in India, and basically around when we are in this sort of teenage, a lot of us just lose the communication with our parents, right? A lot of us don't discuss what is happening in our life, what we want to do, basically because our parents are trying to impose something, we are trying to do something else, and we just stop discussing about our life plans, and we basically just go ahead with our life. So that was one of the biggest thing, which was good with me, and I was very, very open with my parents. I was telling them everything, that okay, this is what I want to do, this is what I'm doing. And when I told them the decision of dropping out, they were, I mean, I won't say they were happy, but I won't say they criticized it as well. I mean, because they just told that, you know what you're doing, and just basically don't do something which you have to regret. And another thing they told, that when you are a high school dropout, or when you basically when you want to go on the path that you have chosen for yourself, you cannot blame anyone else. Like, you are the only one to be blamed. And that was one thing which I realized very soon. And I realized that if I drop out, and if I do not continue my studies in the traditional way, I will have to give my 100% only to build my career. And if I fail into that, then there is no one else to be blamed. I mean, I'm the only one to be blamed, that okay, I only had one thing and I did not do that properly. So, and that is one thing which has been mentioned to me by a lot of people, that when you don't have the academic credentials to show for yourself, when you don't have a proper traditional academic background to show for yourself, the only thing you can show is, okay, this is how I have worked. So I had realized that, very soon, and I think in my life, that I have to basically give my best, and I kept on giving my best until I started to see the results, maybe a year or two after dropping out. And since then, I have never regretted dropping out. So I think the advice or anything that I want to tell to other people, that dropping out is not cool, and don't do it just because someone else is doing. Do it if you actually have to do it. You only do it when you are 100% confident on yourself, that okay, this is something that I am going to do, and it is much more deserving than my school life or my college life, and no matter what stage of your life you are at. So just make sure, and you are the best judge. Like, there is no one else who can evaluate these things for yourself, and who can basically give you these advices. You have to sit with yourself, just figure out a plan on pen and paper, and just tell yourself if it is worth it or not. Will you be able to give 100%? Because when you are closing all the other doors and going to one door, there is no option of giving 99% or 98%. You have to make sure that you give 100% or beyond. If you have any doubt in your mind that I might not be able to give my 100% or more than 100%, don't drop out. Because that is a very safe thing for you to do. That is, basically having an academic record, having basically some sort of formal education gives you a lot of security in your life, both basically career wise as well as society wise. So until and unless you are 100% sure, don't do it. That's all I can say in the response of that.
Yeah, as you mentioned, a lot of teenagers are in their rebellious phase. They don't want to listen to their parents, right? They just but it's a good practice, to communicate with them and telling them what's happening in your life. And then, yeah, they will agree with you because they are your
Correct.
parents, right? And just as you said, dropping out for the wrong reasons is very wrong, right? You have to be completely sure that whatever you are doing is adding value to yourself and growing you as a person, right?
Correct.
Not doing just because everyone else is saying about it, it's becoming a trend, right? Not doing it because of that, and seeing yourself in the future, that yeah, you can, that the career that you are pursuing right now, right, that it can become a huge thing in the future. Then only you should think about it, and
Correct.
then also discuss with your mentors and other people, right? Yeah. Because when you burn all the bridges down, you really have to go that way. Therefore you have to give your 100%, right? There is no other way. That's some really great advice for the people out there. Because in the US it's becoming a trend, dropping out and starting their own businesses, right? Mainly because of the huge amount of student debts, right? So what's your view on that? What's your view on self education? People are right now in the US, firstly, it's becoming a trend that self-education is the key. College are
Correct.
just a form of scams, right?
I won't say colleges are full of scams, or basically, because colleges don't give you just education. Colleges don't give you just a certificate. They tell you how to live. They basically, when you are in a college, like you are right now in a college, and obviously right now we are into very different times when we cannot really be on the campus. We cannot really interact with our peers face to face. But in the normal settings, where the colleges are made for them, and when you are into that, you basically meet like hundreds of people. You are basically sitting in your class with like 50, 60 people, and the kind of backgrounds that they come from, the kind of diversification that you have in your college, in your classes. So, and the kind of connections that you make, the kind of friendships that you make, the kind of experiences that you make, the kind of behavior start to read from different people. So I think most of these things are the ones when you are talking about being in a college, when you are talking about, because yes, I mean, there are a lot of these online platforms who can give you degrees, who can give you who can teach you programming, or who can teach you different skill set, but they can never teach you how to go out there and pitch your idea to a customer, or basically, when a customer reacts in a certain way, how do you respond to that customer in basically reply to that. So college, basically, more than education, it gives us life skills, and this is something which I think that is another big thing. Like, we are not robots, we are social people, and we basically need some of these skills. So yes, I mean, there are the student debt thing that you mentioned in the US. That is very, I mean, that is very bad, I would say. But maybe something like that hasn't started to happen in India. One, the education is not that costly yet. Apart from that, we also have the support of our parents and our families when while we are still studying. So I think that is one concern that is still not a concern for Indians. But apart from that, yes, I really believe that for skills, there are a lot of these, self studies is a great way. There are a lot of these platforms, but I do not want to undermine the importance of college in someone's life uh, just because of a degree, because I know there are a lot of these things which are helpful. The kind of connections that you make in your college are like helpful for your life. You do not make connections when you are self studying, or when you're working, when you're studying from an online platform. Yeah, that's all. I mean, that's my view, and I might be wrong, but I think that way.
No, that's right, because in colleges, what people tend to learn more is the social skills, right? Because they interact with their seniors, they interact with the pass outs. They tell them all the life skills that they are going to need, right? First of all the seniors that do startups, there's a lot of learning to do from them as well as the culture of the college itself, like taking parts into the fest, organizing fests, getting top. There are a lot of other things to college other than the degree itself.
Correct.
But yeah, but the college debt in the US is very serious. And in India right now it's not a problem because our parents are supporting us. But I'm really seeing that the next generation, it would decrease the chances of the college debt thing to rise, are going to increase generation by generation, right? And because the degrees are costly, but the self education is really really cheap. You can learn any skills from YouTube. And just the real advice would be like to enjoy your college life. It's a great thing to have, and make all the connections that you could, meet with great peoples, acquire new skills, new social skills, right? And on the same time work on your the development skills or the self education part via yourself from the online platform, because it's all available right now, right?
Correct.
No, and you told about the mentors, right? There must be people, mentor, that should guide you through the process, like that should advise you for you to make your own decision, right?
Correct.
If you are confused or just don't know what to do, right? So I want to know the importance of mentors in your life, and how should students find good mentors?
Uh, well, another thing, I think this is another thing which is very very overrated. Like, being a mentor is not something you have a fancy personality to be able to be available a lot of times. Like, we tend to overlook the resources that we already have. like when we spoke about the communication gap with our parents. Parents can be very good mentors, but when, like, after we are past a certain age, that is maybe 12, 13, 14 years of age, we tend not to talk to them about a lot of these life problems that we have. So we might have a lot of relatives around us, elder brothers or cousins, or people around, uncles, who might be doing good in something that we want to do in our life, and maybe they might be successful coming from a background just like you, and they might have done something like really, really extraordinary. So there are a lot of these things which we tend to overlook. Like, mentor is not something, a fancy term that you basically have to reach out to Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates to be your mentor, right? Anyone around you can be basically, mentor is just anyone who has a better sense of life, or who has basically achieved something more than you in their life, and they can be your mentor. So when we are just in college, when we are just teenagers, I think the best thing, the best place to look for motivation is around yourself. The best place to look for motivation is maybe in your college seniors. Like, when you're in college or school, there are a lot of people who are passed out from your own college and who are doing really, really great in your life, in their life. And when you reach out to them telling, I'm also from the same college, I'm sure like 99% of them will reply to your messages, will reply to your emails, because there is a connection. And apart from that, again, there are a lot of like friend of friends. You can maybe ask some of your college seniors or some of your friend to connect you to someone else who is their friend. So I think this is how it works. And we have kind of, celebrated this term so much that the moment we say mentor, we basically start thinking of someone who is like, who has built a billion dollar company, or who has basically, who is completely out of her league. And honestly, like, even if you get to talk to that person that you are idolizing as your mentor, most of the times you won't have anything to talk to them, because they are onto a completely different level. Like, you basically have to become someone to talk to them. So I think, that's my thing. Like, I have had a lot of mentors. I've had a lot of people just around me in the business that I've worked with, or the things that I've worked. So there have been a lot of people right from my school. Mentors change. Like, right now, the kind of mentors I have are different. The kind of mentors I had in my school were different. So I think that's one thing that a lot of us need to realize, that there are a lot of mentors just around us. For every single thing, there could be mentors.
Yeah, talking on the subject, like the mentors, it's really, they are really overrated. Like, in the sense, like, they should be, be a CEO of a multi-million dollar company. That's just like you said, right? But in my way, I feel like, asking for advice or guidance to any of the mentors, I feel like I'll be, this, I will ask something very, very obvious for them, right? And that will be very obvious for them, and that it would not be worth their time. I feel like
Correct.
that, and therefore I go all into the subject right beforehand, and research about it. And most of the time, I find all my issues being resolved. I end up being learning more than I could have asked a single question from a mentor or two, right? So
Correct.
this habit has kept me from acquiring, having any mentors, right? So is there any advice for me, like, should I go out and talk to more people, like, ask questions more or something like that?
Yeah, certainly. And most of the times when, the kind of issue that you just mentioned, I think another thing is, like, you do not really have clarity on what to seek from someone particular. So the best thing that you can basically do is, like, you can just make a list of, let's say, 5 things that you really, really need help on, 5 things that you need advices on. And then try to figure out that, okay, there are these 5 people, or there are these 3 people that I think will be helpful to me. And try to give those specific issues to the people who you think can be the most helpful, right? Because let's say someone is doing something completely different, and you just go to him with a completely different problem. He or she might not really be the best person, but I think do a little bit of research, reach out to those people with something specific, that, okay, this is what I read about you, or, this is basically the issue, and you are doing this, you already have experience in this, and I thought you would be the perfect person for me to seek help from. And when you basically reach out to these people with something specific, when they think that you are basically seeking some sort of value from them, some sort of value for their time, those people will be more than happy to reply to you, and those people will be more than happy to discuss those things with you, and basically provide you some sort of feedback or guidance, or whatever you want to call that.
Yeah, that's very great advice. You shouldn't be going to mentors like asking for generic questions like how to get a job or how to get into the business. Like you should really do your study beforehand, and you should also do your study on that mentor. That is he the correct person for you to ask these questions, right? So before that, doing your own research, getting into that subject at hand, and asking the very specific questions that would make their time worth it, right?
Right.
So other than they are really happy to connect with us, just like you told. And what's the way to connect with them? Like should they only be going through LinkedIn, or are the personal platforms like Facebook and Instagram can also be used?
In India, I think it's fine. Most of the people in the US, they basically segregated like very differently. They do not want to, you to reach out to them on Facebook or Instagram. So that's a completely different thing. In India, we are still not that, that much like paranoid about the personal space or the private space or the private network. So I think it's fine. But if you think that someone is more active on LinkedIn, if you think someone is more active on Twitter, I think these two are the perfect platforms to reach out to. And if you think that there is some, I think these should be the first. If you are reaching to someone professionally, I think LinkedIn or Twitter, like those should be the perfect platforms to reach out to. If those people or anyone like you're reaching out to is not replying, I think that you might just basically reach out to them anywhere else, maybe Instagram or Facebook, because there are a lot of people who are using Instagram as well as their public profile, and they basically are looking to build Instagram as well as Facebook. So for a lot of people it doesn't matter, but a lot of people are kind of really let's say there is someone who has a private Instagram profile, do not reach out to them. Send them a follow request, send them like 50 messages, because they have made their they have made their profile private for some reason, right? So yeah, I think like depending on person to person, there are different. So my profile is public, so I wouldn't mind anyone reaching out to me on Instagram. And I try to promote that, because that is a kind of network I built. But there are a lot of people, just like I said, they do not want you to reach out to their Instagram or Facebook network. So yeah, I mean, this is something I think depends case to case basis. Every single person is different. And another thing, like wherever you are reaching out to them, be it Instagram, be it LinkedIn, be it Twitter or Facebook, keep it professional until and unless they are your personal connections. If you are just reaching out to someone professionally, keep it professional, keep your wordings professional, keep the kind of things that you're sending professional. And yeah, I mean, most of the time, like if you are sending them some sort of call to action, there is there is a reason for them to reply back to your message. 99% of the times you will get a reply back, and that's it.
Yeah, reaching out on LinkedIn and Twitter are the professional ways, right? You shouldn't really be bugging into a person's private life, right? The Instagram, if they have, yeah, just like you said, if they have a private profile, it's for a reason, right? You shouldn't be bugging them then. Okay, so that's some really great advice on how to reach, right? Creating and scaling startups have given you quite a lot of experiences that you can't have anywhere else, right? So
Correct.
you have worked in various businesses yourself, right? So what are the learnings that you had from Anamika Infotech and the Indian Wire?
So the learnings actually I've had is obviously like I got the experience of working with different people, working on different projects, working with different clients, and that's like what are the kind of expectations different people have, what are the kind of let's say basically how the whole corporate world works. Like I certainly wouldn't claim that I know all about the professional world or the corporate world, but I know a lot. Like I basically have a lot of experience compared to what I had when I was beginning. And apart from that, I think when you are into that sort of setting, when you are the one who is taking a lot of decisions, and when you think like the kind of decisions that you're taking might just make or break your company, because every single like no not every single decision, but there are a lot of these major decisions when you have to take when. So most of my companies I built were bootstrapped, so I basically had to be very very cautious in where I'm spending the money, what kind of people I'm hiring, what kind of projects I'm doing. So I think it really gives you a uh, lot of education. Basically it basically teaches you a lot about the corporate world, and also about your personal life as well, like your life as well, that where those experiences you can put into perspective in your own life, and how you can basically make use of them. And right now, even now that whatever I'm doing is what I learned from my initial experiences, or my experiences from building teams, my experiences from marketing, my experiences from technology side, my experience from, let's say, accounting or finances, my experience from like basically end to end, because I there were a few things that I was basically managing everything, right from HR to like I was taking tens or hundreds of interviews every month. There were times that I was hiring people, I was managing finances. And when you are you're an entrepreneur, when you are just beginning for the first time, and when you are beginning without a lot of resources, so you basically do everything in your company, and that's something that teaches you a lot about um, doing a lot with the minimum amount of resources possible. And that's all entrepreneurship is about, basically making adjustments with the limited amount of resources you have and making the best out of it. The jugaad approach that we say in India.
Approach, right? Making the best use of what you have right, what you have right there with you, right? And there's some really great advice, learning through the process of the startups, building bootstrap businesses, and getting to know how to interact with people, how to hire people, and basically learning yourself all the processes, so that in the future, if you start a nice company, you can be the CEO, and you can look at everything and be the in charge of it, right? You can know that everything is working fine or not.
Correct.
Right. So I've been following Backstage with Millionaires for quite some time now, and right now it's currently growing at a very good pace. Congratulations on reaching 150,000 subscribers, right?
Thank you.
And yeah, and could you please share your journey with Backstage with Millionaires, and why did you start it?
I think you have mentioned the Indian Wire a couple of times in this conversation. So I have been in media for a while. Like I was building some different media publications, and uh, apart from that, I basically was also working on building some communities with different governments. So I built a community called Jaipur Startups, and I did a few projects with the government of Rajasthan, Haryana, and Punjab, and I did go to a lot of these schools and colleges. So community building was something like interacting with people, trying to help them, and basically, more or less interacting with the students has always been something that I have always enjoyed. And I always wanted to do something which is in the video format, and something which is related to startups. So, and that had been in my mind for a while, like before we finally started Backstage with Millionaires. But I was kind of looking for someone who could, be a kind of, the core driver, or basically, could drive the entire thing on his own shoulders. So when I met Caleb, who is my co-founder in Backstage with Millionaires, so he was someone who was coming with a lot of this creative knowledge, and I knew that if we can, be together, if we can come together, I think I could just get a lot of these connections, and get a lot of these interviews, and he, with his experience, he can make it a lot creative, and we could basically make it work, because we were complementing each other very, very well in how we started. And yeah, that's how it started. And in the beginning, obviously it was a little tough. Like after a few, I got like 10 to 15 interviews from my personal connections, but after that it was a little tough, because we were not a very big platform. We were like maybe just a few hundred subscribers at that point of time, and we were reaching out to this big people. We're reaching out to these big entrepreneurs, and they basically didn't really think that we deserved their 1 hour or their 2 hours of their time. And so that was a little hard, but I think we tried to become, we were basically very persistent. We were trying our level best to do those 2 interviews that we were doing every single week, and it took us a while, but after a while I think we started to get some sort of good results. And now we are growing at a decent pace, and we are finally starting to turn that into a business right from a YouTube channel, and we are looking for some different ventures. We are looking for some different verticals out of that, and hopefully in a few weeks or months, I think we will be basically venturing out to develop something, or basically to build a business on top of the YouTube channel that we have created.
Yeah, just like you said, starting out really, really is tough, right? Reaching out to the person that don't think that you are valuable enough for them to give their time to, right? So that's really tough. I have also been experiencing that. My channel isn't.
Just be persistent, and I think you'll figure it out.
Yeah, that's the same advice that Akriti Bhargava, the CEO of Fiziki, I also did podcast with her. She gave me like be shameless about it, knock on
Correct.
door to door, right? Ask them to be on your podcast and all that. That's really great, and I hope that Backstage with Millionaires is really gonna reach 1 million subscribers by the end of this year, I guess, because
We're hoping, we're trying our level best for that.
and I really want to know about like your future plans. Like, what is Backstage with Millionaires' goal in the future, right? What is trying to do? And firstly, before that, did you envision BWM to be this type of content, right? Like the content, the startup news that you're doing, the weekly Q&As, and all those top 10 startup, all those things, right? What did you expect from it?
So we didn't really expect anything. I mean, because I knew that most of the times when what you start with, you basically don't end up with the same thing, and this is something very true in business. So uh, we were just putting out some content because I knew that what are the kind of interviews that we were doing, the kind of content that we were putting on was helpful, and which would remain helpful for a long period of time, like the kind of journeys that people have had, the successful entrepreneurs in India have had. So that was, I think, the only goal that we had in the beginning. Certainly, like because of pandemic, because of different reasons, we had to change the approach a little bit. So that has been a different approach, or that has been a different thing to do. But that was something that I knew from day one. And apart from that, you spoke about, let's say, the future plan, or sorry, yeah, you spoke about like what we are doing. So I think most of the things that we are doing right now was like the experimentations. So we did a lot of experiments. Some of them worked, some of them did not, and something which worked, are still continuing. Some of them which did not, we did not continue with them. So I think that's one thing which was, or for everyone, I think that is very I think helpful, or I think everyone should follow that whenever you are experimenting, you should be the biggest critic of yourself. That if something is working out, great, but if something is not working out, you should realize that much earlier in your journey or in your life, and you should basically be that critic of yourself, that you should say that, okay, this is not working out, I failed, and I should try again, I should try doing something else. So a lot of people basically, we do not really want to do something on those fronts. So yeah, I think we have just been very open about what is working, what is not, and a lot of these things were experiments, but some of these things really worked out, like the startup news that we're doing, or the top 10 videos that we're doing, or the kind of interviews are still we still want to keep them as our main things. But because right now the kind of situation that we are living in, we don't have to, we basically are not getting a lot of opportunities to do that. But we just did not want to use this as an excuse that, okay, because there are no people to do interviews with, we cannot make any content, right? So I think yeah, that has been the major reason that we did a lot of experiments, succeeded in few, and now coming back to the future plans with Backstage with Millionaires, I think when we started, we were very sure, or I should say I was very sure, that Backstage with Millionaires is going to be a community of where basically we could bridge the gap between wannabe entrepreneurs and people who are already successful entrepreneurs. So how we can basically leverage the experience and leverage the skills of successful entrepreneurs, and make sure that the people who want to start up or who are just starting up, how we can empower them, or how we can basically help them begin the journey of starting up. So we are still very, very committed to that vision, and we want to build something on that. So right now we are just waiting to build a sizable audience where whatever on top of that, whatever we build, we basically have a sizable audience to use, or basically to direct them, or to provide those kind of solutions to that. So I think right now the focus is only to keep creating content, and try and reach 1 million subscribers as soon as possible. Only after that, we would, there will be a few really good, I mean, according to me, there will be really good announcements for Backstage with Millionaires, and hopefully those will be helpful for a lot of different people as well.
Yeah, that's some great, starting out and experimenting with your stuff, like what you're doing, and trying different things, and being the biggest critic of yourself. You are your biggest competition, and realizing it beforehand, and making some changes, and perfecting it in a way that it looks really good and presentable, right? that's
Right.
that's a very great way for content creation. And like you said, I'm that Backstage Millionaires is hoping to launch a community soon. You also have a Discord channel, right?
Correct.
uh, yeah, I will link that down in the description. So I recently joined it, and it's a great community, right? There are people you can ask for advices, right? And it's really great. So other than that, you know, uh, you have you have been actively involved in the student communities, right? And you have been doing pretty good in the NGO, right? You have been doing pretty good with the NGO.
I won't say pretty good, but yeah, I mean, I'm trying to do something. I'm trying to do my best.
Yeah. So, tell me about it, like how are you communicating with those student communities, and what's going on in the NGO, and in what ways are you giving back to the society?
So these student communities, just like I said, I did a program with the government of Rajasthan where there are 217 degree colleges in Rajasthan. I mean, they have increased, I think, by 3 or 4 in the last 3 years. When I worked with the government, it was 2016-17. So we basically, with the Department of College Education, it was like my goal was just to promote entrepreneurship in the state. And I was going to a lot of these colleges and basically telling those students about the kind of basically what entrepreneurship is, what starting up is, and how the kind of ideas, if they have ideas, how they can implement them, and also the kind of schemes that the government was running to help them. Like government of India came with the Startup India mission in 2016, and after that, government of India as well as different governments of different states, they've been running a lot of these schemes for promoting entrepreneurship in their states or in the entire country. So there are a lot of these schemes which a lot of people in the rural areas do not know about, and government basically has a lot of really good schemes for anyone who is wanting to start a business, even a traditional business, and not something very creative, or not something very what do I say, fashionable. So that was a thing which I started with. And apart from that, there have been a few schools. Like I have been on the official mentor board of them. Like I've been interacting with the students and helping them take better decisions, basically helping them with whatever doubts that they have about their careers, about how they basically just want to go ahead and choosing something as a career choice. So I basically just been helping because this is something I really love doing. And another thing, I think that the kind of like a lot of us basically need someone to talk to, like someone that we can basically just consider as our mentor or our best friend, or whatever. And this is something that has started to give me satisfaction. A lot of these students, when they come to me with something very silly, or with something very important, both of these things are important. So and whenever they come to me seeking some sort of advice, some sort of help, and when I can help them, it basically gives me a lot of satisfaction. So I have had conscious efforts to reach out to more and more colleges and more schools, and basically just trying to help as many students as I can. And talking about the NGO, basically, so the NGO we started was like the biggest motto of that was to just implement the government projects that I was doing in Rajasthan. Like I wasn't really doing anything on my own, but because the governments do not work with someone who is an individual. Governments only work with organizations. So that's how the NGO came into existence. But after that, like there were some funds which was provided by the government. There were some funds which were donated by different people. So when I was doing this Rajasthan tour, where I was going into a lot of these these colleges. So there I built a network of even the housewives as well as the students, and how we could help them. Like there are a lot of schemes that I spoke about. There are a lot of these schemes with the government, state government and the Indian government, but a lot of these schemes do not cover everyone around. Like there are times when someone really wants to do something great, but the government schemes do not cover them, and even a sum of, let's say, 5 to 10 lakh rupees for those people is very, very big, like people in the rural area. So I wanted to help someone, a few of those people. I wanted to connect them with some people who I knew had money and were looking to invest in these kind of opportunities. So I started building a small network of these this kind of people, and I started to connect those with the businessmen in Rajasthan. So most of the operations that are of the NGO that I have are limited in the demography of Rajasthan. So, and since last 2 years, I haven't really been on ground doing a lot of these things. Like the network that I built until 2018. I think the same network is going on, but maybe once things are normal after maybe 2-3 years, I plan to get back, and this is something I plan to do full time, and to basically just build a community around Rajasthan, because I love my state, and I just want to do something for this, and maybe after that for different demographics. But yeah, I mean, maybe once I have more resources, once I have more skills and connections, I want to get back and maybe have like give more of my time to that NGO.
So yeah, the work that you did with the NGOs, it's really great in empowering the startups and the small people who are looking to are looking big in the development sector but don't have the funds to to develop that, right? And in, in just like you said, in India, most of us don't aren't aware of the things that are going around, right? Because like you said, the government schemes, people didn't know about it, and it wasn't covering a lot of people, right? In the same way, a lot of startup news and the things that are happening in the startup community, right, or in the business world, we a lot of people don't know about it. Just like, for example, Bitcoin was around since 2010, and it has really gained traction now, right? Uh, it was just because of the unawareness of the system, unawareness of the processes, right? So that's some great, really great thing that you are doing in the NGO, and I would really love to see more of it, right, in the upcoming years. Coming on to the more personal questions, right? What kind of skill set would you value the most in a person?
Uh, do I have like choices of things to choose from, or
Yeah, it can be simple choices like being persistent in their work, or being being really really into it. If you are into it, like you can't see anything else, that kind of skills, or anything that you particularly mind that if a person has it, yeah, he might be an ideal person for me to work
I
with.
think the best thing, yeah, I mean, to the motivation is something that I really kind of value with in everyone. Like if I'm working with someone, if I'm working for someone, if someone is working with me, or if anyone like who might not even be involved in what I'm doing, but I'm just meeting them, the kind of motivational vibes that they have, the kind of journey that they have, or even no, not only the journey, and basically if they are self motivated or not. Do they want to be a better version of themselves, or are they just happy in their life? Are they just enjoying, and are they just thinking that okay, I've had enough, and this is like the best I could do in my life, and I cannot grow anymore. Or people who are not open to basically improving themselves. So those are the kind of people I don't really want to get along with. But if someone is self-motivated, if someone is basically trying to work on themselves more and more, and someone who is obviously, the persistence is something that is one thing that you don't really realize in people when you meet them first. There are like, because they might be different in their personal life, they might be different when they are talking to you. But I think the kind of vibe that I have, if I get to learn something from them, and it doesn't matter like who that person is, that person I'm working with them or not, if I'm just meeting them, if there is something for me to learn, if there is something for me to kind of look forward to, that is one thing which is an instant attraction. This is something that okay, I love this person, I would want to meet him again and again to learn something, or to basically just see the kind of thought process he has, or the kind of decision making process that he has. So I think that is one thing. It might take me a little bit of time, but I need to feel motivated to be around someone that I want to work with, or I want to be around.
Yeah, being self motivated is the really the key, because external motivation just fades away, right? you have to you have to experience it from within, or let's say discipline. You have to have the discipline to work, right?
Correct.
Then only you can work for a longer period of time and look at longer goals, right? Not the short term temptations or anything. And just like you said, for a person to be very good in their skill set, right, it really gives a certain kind of attraction, like, yeah, that person is really good, I should really know about that skill that he's working on, and things like that, right? Being connected to the startup culture in India, and having talked to many CEOs and co-founders, right, and of various sectors. Firstly, what are the sectors that you are think are going to bloom up, right? That have the potential to be the billion-dollar industries, and what advice would you give to the college student setting out on their startup journeys?
Uh, I think every like I do not really want to kind of segregate, or I do not really want to kind of be partial to some sectors, because I think that any sector that you pick, or any sector, whatever, like if you're looking for ideas to build your startups in, if you're looking for motivation to build your startup in, no matter what sector you choose, if you do something which is not being done before, if you do something, with more conviction, if you do something with better execution, or, better keeping those customers in mind, anything can be successful. And I have seen like a lot of people do a lot of these things which were already being done. They just did it with some sort of twist. They did it something, with more with bigger vision, and they were successful. But talking about the sectors, like talking about the big things which I am very, very hopeful for, is I think, one is the edtech. Edtech sector has in last few years, like at least, more or less in the last 2 years after the COVID pandemic hit, the way the whole edtech sector has grown, like that has just been phenomenal. So I think edtech sector still hasn't reached to the 10-15% of the potential that it has. It still has a lot to achieve, and this is something I'm very, very hopeful with, because Indian education system hasn't really been the best in the world. Like we haven't really been proud of the education system that we have had, be in the primary schools, be in the middle schools or high schools, or be in the colleges. So I think edtech market of India, or edtech sector of India, can really, really revolutionize that, and that will, I think, govern, or that will basically I think, that will decide like how the next few years of Indian education go forward with. And apart from that, I think, COVID has also given us some sort of reasons to build for health tech. COVID has given us some reasons to build for personal services, personalized services, be it in, let's say, Urban Clap. Like I was just reading something about Urban Company yesterday. They were Urban Clap before, and the way that they have built their businesses, just because keeping the whole hygiene around, keeping personalized services around. So I think this is another thing which is going to become a lot. And obviously, like, we can never forget technology. We can never forget the different sectors of technology which are coming in: AI, machine learning. We are talking about augmented reality. We are talking about virtual reality. So this is something, which is very, very, which is certainly going to be big.
Yeah, ever since the internet boom, everything is being based around the software nowadays, right? The tech sector is, booming up with unicorns like an academy popping up, right? And it's really great to know that people are working really hard on, changing the education sector for good. Because traditionally, all we have been seeing is, you have to go to the college, and then you have to go to the schools and all that. You only have a certain amount of teachers to learn from, right? And gain certain amount of education that's limited. But really, it's expanding the way to learn, right? It's really great. And just like you said, it's 10-15% of a student potential. That's really great. So yeah, we all wish that we should have known something at a younger age that really would have helped us, right? What is something that you wish that you should have known at a younger age?
Well, there are actually a lot of things, but again, I think, I have a slightly different perspective to that, because right now I'm thinking from a perspective of a 25-year-old. Like, I cannot basically impose something which I have gained in my 25 years of life on my, let's say, 11-year-old self, right? Because that would be completely different, and then my life would have been completely different if I knew something at that point of time. So I think there is a process, but just like I said, maybe if I was a little more patient, if I was a little bit more accepting to the situation or to the kind of challenges, because and everyone, like, not everyone maybe, but majority of people in our surroundings or in our age, basically they think that they're entitled to be received or to basically get everything that is around them. So I think if I had that feeling, that took me a while to get that. It took me a while to basically start respecting what everyone else is doing. It basically took me a lot of time to acknowledge what other people have achieved and the kind of efforts that it has taken them. So I think to just have realization that every single person is as important as you are. So that would have been one thing that I think, I could have used, knowing from a very, very younger version of myself. But apart from that, I think, it's a process, and like, the more you learn from, like people say that, ठोकर खा के अकल आती है, right? So until the time you don't experience it yourself, I think Yeah, you don't really value the, because if I have a thought right now, and if I would have given that to a younger self of mine, I wouldn't have respected that much, right? If I experience that myself, if that basically takes me a few weeks, months, or years to realize, if if that is the kind of, that is a practical learning, then only you respect that.
Yeah, that's really great. Seeing on that, like your younger self would have been in a much different state that you are in, right? You are you because of the experience that you had and all the failures that you faced, and you have grown up, evolved into a better person, right? So
Correct.
that's some really great advice that you gave. Thank you guys for watching. You guys should really check out Backstage with Millionaires. I will be linking the channel down below. And Prithvi does an online Instagram live every Sunday at 11 a.m. and you should really check that out. And Prithvi, where can they find you if they have any questions regarding?
Well, they can find me on Instagram, they can find me on LinkedIn, and they can find me on. Basically, I'm active on all the social platforms, and I don't keep my my profile private. So wherever they are most comfortable with, they can reach out to me. Just like you mentioned, they can also find me at Backstage with Millionaires, the Instagram as well as YouTube, and yeah.
It's for a really fun and interesting conversation that we had right now. We talked all about your experience that you had from a young age, building a startup and gaining experience and starting an NGO, and what are the things that you want to advise to the college student and to the younger version of yourself and everything. And thank you for being here on the Kairos podcast. It was really great having you.
Thank you. It was Samuel. Nice to talk to you, and I hope to talk to you again.
With that, we take our leave, and please make sure to hit the subscribe button and follow us on Instagram at Kairos Podcast. And you can also subscribe to our weekly newsletter at kairos.in.